You're listening to the Journey Podcast. What happens when we stop running from our shadows and start exploring what they can teach us? Stay tuned for today's episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we shine a light on the concept of illuminating your dark, a journey into understanding and embracing the shadow parts of ourselves. We discuss how confronting and integrating these aspects can lead to profound personal growth and healing. By acknowledging our whole selves, including the parts we might not be proud of, we pave the way for genuine self-acceptance and transformation. Our guest shares her experience with this powerful process, offering insights into how embracing our inner darkness can actually illuminate our path to wellness and fulfillment. We explore practical strategies for engaging with our shadows, fostering compassion, and using our discoveries to fuel positive change in our lives. Margie Breault serves as a compassionate guide and advocate for beings on their transformative journeys. Through her roles as a transformational energy for life coach, medium, and healer, Margie empowers clients to become aware of and transform limiting belief systems and conditions. Her approach is grounded in a holistic understanding, weaving together spiritual, scientific, and practical insights. Margie assists clients in embracing authenticity, reclaiming their truths, and navigating the complexities of life. Whether it's through one-on-one coaching sessions, healing practices, or empowering workshops, Margie creates a supportive space to explore your inner landscapes, release limitations, and align with your soul's essence. Let's meet Margie Breault. Hi, Margie. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because illuminating your dark is such an intriguing topic for our conversation today. I'm really excited to dive in and hear more about that. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I think it's a really important topic to really bring to people's awareness. So I'm glad to have this conversation with you today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So for starters, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and how you came to do what you do today and maybe a little bit about what it is that you do?
Yeah, so let's start with the story, right? The story is always the good part. To really understand how my journey unfolded and why I am where I am, you kind of have to understand really where the origins began. And I think as a young child, you learn on your healing journey that your light is going to irritate a lot of unhealed people. And really early on in my own life, my light irritated the unhealed parts of my mother. Really early on, I became a scapegoat and also a target for her. As early as the age of 4, I can remember her really turning into my first bully and turning into this person who could not take accountability and needed to project things onto me. But this also led me to believe things about myself that weren't true. So I was constantly moving in this place where I couldn't identify my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions. I thought I was a liar because I was literally made to put myself in front of a mirror and tell myself I was a liar. I had no idea how to connect with people. I always felt really lost and disassociated. I didn't understand why the world was so mean. I always felt confused. There was a lot of anxiety and depression and a lot of things that I, again, believed about myself because I was taught that they were truth. And so I operated in those patterns. So I operated in the idea that I was a liar and that I liked chaos and that I was always doing something wrong and I was wrong about my feelings and I was always manipulating people and seeking really codependent relationships and life was always happening to me. Around the age of 11, my parents put me in therapy for the first time. Through my young adult and teenage years, I really bounced in and out of therapy. And when I emerged at the age of 18, I really didn't feel like I learned anything. I felt like I was really self-aware. I could talk about emotions. I could talk about all of these things, but I had no practices. I really felt really disconnected from myself. And I continued to run into these same things over and over again because at that point I had no idea that I was supposed to be evolving. I didn't know. And I also didn't know how limited I still was because I didn't realize all those limiting beliefs that I was holding and all the projections I was holding. It was just a girl on survival mode operating in the way that she was taught. And traditional therapy wasn't teaching me to uncover and heal those things. It was teaching me how to be able to get in and talk about it and be really self-aware. So you would have no idea the person underneath all of that faux self-awareness was suffering tremendously. In my early 20s, I was at the tail end of a really toxic relationship. And I was in and out of bar rooms from Thursday to Sunday. I worked 3 jobs and really in a consistent state of disassociation. All my friendships were extremely codependent. If I wasn't operating in my own chaos, I was really allowing theirs to be piled on top of mine. So I didn't have to deal with myself or take accountability. Always really like feeling like I was being thrown around in the storm of life because there was no balance there. And because I was so often worked in people pleaser and victim mentality, I also was really in this positive projection space because of the toxic positive culture, like positive vibes only culture that was really, it still exists now, but was I felt like it was like really emerging in my early 20s. I was consistently just this ball of chaos and not realizing that I was the cause and the effect and where all of those things and those obstacles and those limiting beliefs were really coming from. So in my early 20s, when I was coming out of that relationship, and as all of our journeys, we all have healing allies and support systems that we don't always recognize them to be such when we're on our journey. And I had a really wonderful friend who introduced me to Reiki. And Reiki is like a really gentle form of energy healing. And at the time, I felt great when I was going to these sessions. I felt like I was really releasing a lot while I was on the table. But as soon as I left, I was going back into those same operating patterns. It was like a really passive healing experience. I was letting energy go while I was there, but still not leaving with the tools and being able to operate differently when I left. I still found myself really seeking. I felt still so lost and really unable to connect deeper with myself and really go deep and dark into those places so that I could take accountability, so that I could shift. Because we can't shift of things that we're not aware of, and we're not aware unless we're taking accountability. Then another healing ally, another support came to my awareness. It was an old babysitter that I had as a kid, and she reached out and she was like, "Hey, I know that you're into this stuff. I've been taking classes, and I really think you should take some classes with me." Her name's Jenny, that healing ally. And I started taking classes to heal, teach her, learn about these modalities. So I was learning about Reiki, I was learning about aromatherapy, I was learning all the theology and the theories behind it and the science, because really, truly, there's so much science behind it all, which is fascinating. And I was learning about shamanism and I was watching podcasts and YouTube videos and just learning, still really trying to figure out how to action all of these things. So, like, how am I actioning all these things that I'm unlocking? So I was then introduced to the academy that I take a lot of my classes through now, and I actually teach with, called the Swaha Yoga and Synergy of Sound Academy. In my first class with them, I was learning about natural law. And I know most people and most of your listeners have probably heard about law of attraction and manifestation, just like you and I were talking off the camera before. In this particular class, they started talking about the law of polarity. And this really blew my mind, this idea that it's okay to be aware that there is both positive and negative, light and dark, and that built-in duality exists in everything in nature. And to have true balance and to live in true harmony is to live in the awareness of both and in the balance of both, not negating that either exists and not labeling everything as positive and negative, because emotions aren't positive or negative. They simply are energy. Some of it is heavy, some of it is dense, some of it is light and airy and free, but there's no negative or positive to that. And everything is made up of atoms. Everything. We're made up of atoms. Trees are made up of atoms. Everything is made up of atoms, and they have cells, and atoms have positive and negative. You can't have just all positive or all negative. You need to have both. And you have to have balance in both as well. An atom, if it only had positive ions, is going to explode or implode on itself. Same thing if it only has negative. And it only stays balanced when both are working together. if that's true of an atom, then that's true of everything that's created by atoms. That's true for us as humans. Being aware that if there's an up, there's a down. If there's light, there's a dark. If there's good, there's bad. And really being able to move in that flow of life, pulling myself out of positive projection. It's like that light bulb went off. I saw this newly lit path that I knew was going to be a lot of work. And I had a choice in that moment to be like, okay, I don't want to learn anymore. I'm going to stop here, or to get really curious. I always will sit in moments of gratitude for the version of myself who decided, no, we're going to get really curious here. We're going to go deep and we're going to be able to uncover a lot and do a lot of work here. And I've stayed consistent on that path ever since. And so that's really like where my journey started and really led me to where I am now. So now I do so much that if you had told me 10 years ago that I'd be doing all the things that I do now in the world, I would not have believed you. I probably would have run away in the other direction, being absolutely petrified that those were my aspirations and my intentions and the things that I felt were connected to the essence of my soul and really what I was put here on the planet to do. Now I work a full-time job. I work in business and community development for the city that I live in. I own my own business and I work diligently to be a lifelong learner and student of life, but also intentional learning. So I'm consistently taking classes in ancient traditions and wisdom traditions to awaken and enliven that more in myself. So I own a business, Prism Brilliance. And then again, I work in business and economic development, which I'm very passionate. And so I bring my whole self no matter what place I'm working in, which I think is really important for people to hear.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I kind of feel that when you come to a certain point and you can't unknow things anymore. So where you had those aha moments, I feel once we kind of pass that threshold and we learn certain things and they make sense to us and that light bulb goes on, you can't really close the lid and take a step back anymore at that point. So I'm really glad that you decided to go forward with that. We're so much better off to have more people like yourself that offer these kind of services, that keep studying and that keep bringing this out into the world. So yeah, I definitely see that there comes this point where you can't really say no anymore. It just goes forward from there.
Yeah. And I feel like you could try, but life is going to be really difficult if you try to put your head back in the sand like an ostrich. Like it's going to be really hard to actually have any forward motion if you don't make that choice. You're going to be constantly caught in this loop and you're going to know that there's something better and more. It's like you're choosing, because we have free will, to stay in that place. And that's hard.
Yeah, it is. And it usually comes with some kind of consequence, either emotional, mental, even physical distress that starts happening. So usually there's some kind of consequence to us doing that.
There absolutely is, because where there's an effect, there's a cause.
Yeah.
Cause and effect.
Yeah, absolutely. What happened after you had this aha moment? So you obviously realized that where there's light, there's dark, there are certain things in life that you started learning about. What happened after that? What kind of impact did that have on your life? And how do you choose to actually incorporate that into your life today?
Oh, that is such a fabulous question. And really, what that did for me was I felt like it turned my sights towards working, because it is work and it sounds simple, but it's actually pretty hard. And you have to have a lot of discipline to do it. And it takes a lot of patience for yourself and a lot of grace for yourself to do it, because the shift doesn't happen overnight. Even if you become aware in that moment, you have to continue to practice to stay aware and stay in that place of awareness versus the place of judgment. And to move mountains and to make those shifts for yourself, it's really first grounding and rooting and coming into a place of compassion. Because if you are always in judgment and criticism, you are going to stay in those cycles. Even if you think that you're aware, you're still operating in that separate mind. Coming to a place where you are learning about yourself with curiosity versus staying in judgment, which is a practice. It's a practice. I say that again, it sounds simple to do, but especially in our society, we are taught that our brains are in charge and we get lost with all of these stories that are being told. Emotion comes in, a thought comes in, we attach ourselves to it, and then we're being placed in that storm of that thought. So becoming aware of our triggers and becoming aware of those thoughts, those looping patterns that we might have and those thoughts that are coming in, and deciding that we're not going to agree. Because the moment we agree with that judgment or that criticism, we're going into a story and then we're being tossed around. And that takes a lot of undoing. Being in this place where even now, all the work that I do and all the teaching that I do and all of the awareness that I have, that doesn't not happen. Those thoughts still come in, those criticisms still come in, those stories still come in. It's now being in a place of working to stay in that place of awareness, that conscious awareness, that place of the third choice, where I'm not deciding that I'm agreeing, which I'm not always successful with. It's a lifelong practice. I just am a lot better at it now than I was at the beginning of the journey. Continuing to show up in that way, continuing to show up with curiosity, continuing to show up with intention to be in that place of compassion. The more you do it, the more you practice it, the more discipline you have in that practice, the deeper you go and the more you'll be able to do it. And then you're showing other people how to do it too. And as you hold space for yourself, you're allowing yourself to show compassion, show space, and hold space for others. When I say that just the learning of that law of polarity shifting right there in that moment, I saw that path I could take and I decided I'm doing that. With that has come a tremendous amount of intentional education and learning about it and learning about practices that I can use to deepen my awareness, but also the practices that I can bring to others. Because, I operate my own business and my intention is to also teach other people how they can do this in their lives. And you have to know how to do practices, lots of them, or have a community of people that you can refer people to be able to teach them how to do it. People don't connect if you're just giving them knowledge. I could read anything from a book and say, I know this. That's knowledge, that's information, but you really connect with someone and their truth when you're living that wisdom, and that wisdom only comes from the practices and that you're doing. People aren't going to believe you if you're just spitting out information. They're less likely to take your guidance if you're just saying, here's all of this and this and this and this. You're a lot less likely to follow my advice if you're not energetically connecting with the things that I'm saying, because I'm not living that. My words and deeds and actions aren't aligning. And even if you don't know that, energetically, you're going to feel that and you're not going to follow my advice. So being that intentional way shower is a thing that I take very seriously on my journey. I have a lot of integrity around it. And that comes again with a lot of compassion, a lot of grace. Also knowing I don't know everything and being okay with that. Also knowing that the more I learn and the more I uncover, the more I learn and the more I uncover.
That's part of being that lifelong student, right? Is just recognizing that we will actually never finish learning on this path. It just is more wisdom to uncover as we go along our journey. Now, your first encounter in this was with Reiki, if I heard that correctly. And what have you studied since then? Any modalities that have particularly stood out to you, or anything that you use in your practice now that you discovered around energy healing and holistic healing and on your own path? Anything that you found particularly helpful?
Yeah, so for me, I really love learning all the history and the ancient wisdom behind the things that I'm intentionally taking into my life. I really have a lot of training and I continue to take training because of that lifelong student, but also like there's always more that I can learn. Sometimes I'll even retake because I know I keeper with what I know now and I can go back and take that class because now there's something different I can learn. And the teachers that you learn from are also expanding too. So they're teaching at a different level if you go back and retake a class that you have already taken. So doing that, I feel like the things that I'm certified in, I'm a Reiki master teacher, I'm a breathwork practitioner teacher, I'm trained in certified in meditation practices. I'm trained in energy medicine 1 and 2 and work in energy medicine 3, which is coming into 5D, fifth dimension. I am trained in oral transmission, which is the ancient art of channeling, connecting into all streams of consciousness back to the original 33 oracles. I am trained in sound, so sound healing. I have some education behind crystals and working with crystals. I have embodiment and shamanic practices under my belt. I feel like there's a few more that I'm missing, but those are the ones that are resonant to the conversation we're having right now. And I'll tell you that I use almost all of the modalities that I learn about, I bring into my routine every day. In the morning, I do a meditation. It's a short one. It's a short scalar meditation, which is harnessing scalar light and enlivening that in our own energy field. Scalar light is the energy that lives in everything. And so it lives in us. We can use sound and meditation and optimal imagination to really energize that in our own energy field, in our own body. So I do a short bioscalar meditation almost every day. I won't say I'm 100% successful, but I'd say almost every day. So that comes with a little bit of breath work. I set intentions every morning. I move my body. I sing. I dance almost every day. So some sort of rhythmic movement and using my voice in some way. And I always do intentional affirmations that connect to your chakras. So I do those affirmations every day as well. That's just like a practice that I do typically before I go to work. But then there's lots of things that I use during the day. I'll go for a walk if I need some space. I'll use breathing exercises. I'm consistently listening to flow music or uplifting and really connected, energized music that's working in that space that I want to be in, and really keeping myself grounded and rooted throughout the day, and also continuously connecting into the streams of consciousness to be delivering the messages to who I'm supposed to be delivering messages to, and connecting in with all of that energy from that place of oneness. So that's really working in the natural law. And I'm always seeing natural law play out in my life and seeing how it really works into my day-to-day operations and how I'm seeing that play out right in front of my eyes, so I can use that as my own direct evidence. So those are the types of things that I do for myself every day, or almost every day.
Yeah, those sound really fascinating. There's some points in there that I think listeners can definitely take away and apply in their own lives and try out for themselves to see how that works for them. From this path of learning about different modalities and then applying them in your life, it obviously has changed you. You are not the same person that you were as that 4-year-old, and you're not the same person that you were when you went through school. So having changed and kind of expanded your horizon and your wisdom, have you found that it is difficult to take that path without some kind of support network or support around you? I feel like many people, they start on this path and then they are very doubtful of their own healing journey, very doubtful because they're getting pushback from friends and family or from society. So how's that experience been for you, and have you had support?
Oh my goodness. I feel like the experience and the journey is an internal job, but it's fueled by that external support. I quite honestly would not be where I am today without the support that I have. So I work in a Shambhala or a healing community. I am consistently supported. I myself get a healing/mentorship session every 4 weeks. I move between the co-creator of the academy that I go through. Her name is Lisa Ishwari Murphy, and one of her more senior students. Her name is Nicole Pepin, and her business is Light of 100,000 Suns. I go through them consistently. I see one of them every 4 weeks. I am always leaning on my community for support when I'm going through something, when I need space to be held, when I'm going through something challenging, when I need a mirror to be held, and when I need my blind spots to be illuminated. Really working in that space intentionally, but always knowing that if they hold the wisdom, I can draw into that because we're all connected into that place of oneness. If I trust that and own it, then I can really lean on that for support. And then also really encouraging my family to be in that place as well. Like my husband gets his own healing sessions, and he works really intentionally on his own healing journey. And he has his own practices that are separate from mine because his journey is different than mine. My dad sees one of my teachers as a healer. He goes through intentional practices. He comes to meditation. He does breath work, and he lives upstairs from us. We work pretty much as a unit. My son, he's 6. He sees one of my teachers as a healer. He doesn't need to go as consistently, but it's fun for him. And he does a lot of these practices with me. My 3-year-old, she's not quite there yet. She'll be there soon, I'm sure. But she really gets to grow up in this environment where it's much different than the environment I got to grow up in. She's seeing these things played out throughout her entire life. So these are going to be normal things to take accountability and to show unconditional love, and to know that mistakes are okay and that we're all learning and growing. And there's so many different ways to experience and view the world, but also to experience and view healing. And that your journey and your practices don't need to look like mine if those aren't what resonate and work for you. Without the support, I wouldn't be where I am.
Yeah. So there's something to be said for having support and community as you're kind of embarking on this journey to help you and support you with that. Is it difficult to find that community, especially when you're first starting out on this journey?
I think it's less difficult to find and more difficult to find trust, because I think that there's a lot of fear around connecting in with something that's unknown and trusting yourself, especially if you have experience in toxic relationships. If you are finding yourself really drawn to one of these communities, my suggestion for you is to keep showing up and continue to explore. Maybe if the community that you're in right now doesn't resonate with you, try another one. It's okay that some people come into our lives for a lesson, a season, a blessing, and sometimes that season is longer than others. Looking at everything as a learning experience and knowing that there is a community out there that wants to support you and that's going to be the place for you.
Yeah. I think it's much easier today also with a lot of online access where it's not the same as in person necessarily, but for some people who may not have access to support at all, the online communities are also a good place to get started and to connect.
And there's some great online communities and platforms that don't only just have that experience where you're being able to connect with other people, but there's learning opportunities and things you can pull on from there too.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, I'm going to ask you before we wrap up, when we say illuminating your dark, now that we've explored this topic a little bit and heard your journey, what does that mean to you? And how do you apply that in your life, this illuminating your dark?
When I mean illuminating your dark and what I intend to really show people is that the more curious you get, the more light that you're allowing in, the deeper you'll be able to go into those places of darkness and bring more illumination. Instead of being scared or holding judgment for those places that are dark, knowing that if you go there, you're actually bringing more light and space to those places and you're allowing for love to grow there, which allows for more light and more space to grow within yourselves. So it really allows for a liberation of suffering because when we allow those dark spaces to be illuminated and we can hold accountability or we can send accountability to where it needs to be, when we can hold our space in love and compassion, and we can be in those places where we're releasing the roots of those traumas or those triggers, and we're allowing everybody to be acknowledged, all of ourselves included, we are going to change. Like the version of me right now is not going to be the version of me that shows up tomorrow because of this conversation, because of other things I've learned this morning, because of things that have been illuminated, because I'm always curious and I want to sit in the dark. Doing that shadow work and illuminating that space allows you to go into another deep crevice and do it all over again. When I say illuminate your dark, I mean continue to come into these places of awareness with curiosity and compassion and illuminate those places with light and love and laughter and joy and be so happy that you can do that for yourself and then show others how to do that too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That actually is a very beautiful thought, is that we can start our own healing by looking into that darkness and then actually help others look into those spaces too. I like that. Yeah, it's very empowering.
Thank you. The more vulnerable that we can be and share pieces of our journey as we're healing, again, the more we're going to help illuminate others. When you're illuminating your own dark spaces, know that you're helping someone else illuminate their dark too. And that's a really powerful thing. That's a really powerful thing to be able to do, to not just hold the light for yourself and illuminate those shadow parts for you, but as you do that work and you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you're doing it for many more people. So that ripple effect then grows.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you work with clients on exactly those kind of things. What kind of programs and services do you have available so that listeners could get an idea of how they could work with you?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I do offer one-on-one and group services for individuals. So I have transformational energy healing sessions, which be all of my services can be done in person or via Zoom. So if it's someone who's not in my immediate area, we can make it work. So transformational energy sessions are focused on releasing traumas and limiting beliefs, getting to the roots and triggers and really uncovering those looping patterns and those limitations, using a combination of all of the modalities that I have learned and use. I also do energy for life coaching, which is very similar to the energy healing sessions. But if we're in person, it's less laying down on a healing table, a lot more talking. Again, always using those supports of rhythm and oral transmission and sound and really being in those places where I'm drawing from many support systems. And that I'm really focused on flow and manifestation coaching, teaching people how to come into flow with these practices and seeing their own blind spots and continuing to hold the mirror of miracles. And then also being able to teach them how to manifest from a place of balance where they're becoming the energy they want to attract and really learning about all of the natural laws. I also do sound, meditation, and breath work. I can do that for one person, but typically do that in groups. My passion is really bringing this to the business community and helping teams really organize in a really more harmonious way and focused more on changing from how businesses and teams work in that love of power to the power of love. I also do organizational flow consulting, where I help organizations kind of shift their model of operation to be more people focused. So those are the way that people can work with me. They can find me at prismofbrilliance.biz. I have packages available. You can buy just one session or you can buy a package. For my transformational energy sessions and energy for life coaching, I do have a group package as well. So if you don't want to go on the journey alone, you want to go through with a group of people, you can do that as well. And then I also offer workshops. I'm a keynote speaker and program facilitator. There's different topics that I'll speak on, but I also have some workshops that I offer as well.
Amazing. And we will be linking to all of Margie's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there on how you can connect with her, find her courses, or if you want to ask her some questions about the programs that she offers, you can find all of that information in the show notes. Well, this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope that our listeners have enjoyed this journey into illuminating your dark, which actually coincidentally has been very enlightening as we've been talking. So it has been fantastic having you on the show today, Margie. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this wisdom with us.
Oh, Petra, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me and creating this space intentionally. I really couldn't be more thankful.
Oh, thank you so much. And keep shining your light and all this amazing work that you're doing. And take really great care of yourself.
You as well.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.